All right, folks, welcome to this live photo critique on portraits with Mr. Jake Hicks. We're going to get started in just a second here. Just stand by. We're actually backstage powdering our noses and combing our hair. Some of us that have hair are cutting and doing all that stuff. But anyway, we're going to get started in just a second here. Thanks for showing up. We'll see you in a second. All right, folks, welcome back to another TWiP PRO Photo Critique. This is a live one. We've got a live guest on stage with me virtually through Skype to talk about today's topic. This is number, 71. So I'm going to treat this one a little bit differently from the other ones because normally we just record these, do a little post-production, edit it, and publish it. This one's going out. You're going to see how the sausage is made on this one. So we're live streaming all the way. Here to discuss this week's photo submissions to the TWiP PRO Photo Critique topic is my friend, Mr. Jake Hicks, right there. What's up, Jake? What's going on?
How you doing, Frederick? Yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah, and you've obviously just announced that this is the beta, so I'm glad to see that you're testing all this out on me. Appreciate
No,
it.
I've done it before. We've done it before. It's just, not in a
Live.
long
Okay,
time.
cool.
Not a long time. Yeah, this is going to be great. I'm looking forward to your thoughts on the submissions that are in there because there's a ton of good ones in there. Let me bring this up
Yeah, it's
here.
great to see so many being posted for sure.
Yeah. TWiP PRO Community, man, for the win. There's a lot of power in there. Little housekeeping. People, if they want to go check out your work at your website, I put it in the post for within TWiP PRO. But why don't you just sort of recite where people can go to find out, to see more of your work and also take some of your tutorials and all that stuff before we dive into the critique.
Thank you. Yeah, everything is really found at jakehicksphotography.com, and everything on there. There is tutorials on there at the top of the page. You just click on tutorials and you can look at the videos and stuff that I've got. And obviously we've got workshops and stuff here in the UK at the moment. But yeah, everything really leads out from there. Instagram is Jake Hicks Photography as well. So yeah, it's real easy. Yeah, and you'll know it immediately. It's just the bright, colourful shots of oily ladies.
The signature.
Exactly, yeah.
Bright, colorful shot of ladies. I like that. Cool. All right, a little more housekeeping. Like I said, this is 71. Portraits is the topic, but folks didn't necessarily have to submit portraiture. You're a portrait photographer, portrait fashion, commercial type person. So if they wanted to pander to you blatantly, they could submit colored gel portraiture. Because you accept pandering, right? You're good for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Of course. And then we'll pick a favorite at the end. And before we get to the end here, I want to let you guys know what next week's topic du jour is going to be. I thought about it, and because next week is sort of 4th of July week here in the United States, Independence Day, all that stuff. It's also Pride Week within this month. So I figured we would just do a combination of the two and make the topic for next week's photo critique Pride. So however you want to express the word pride, feel free to create that image or find that image and upload it. And that will be the topic for next week. All right. Jake Hicks, what do you say we dive in? You ready?
I am ready, yeah.
All right, here we go. Drum roll, please. Let's see. All right, look at that. I've got YouTube on the screen. How about that? How about that? How about that for Inception? I'm looking at the YouTube page, but it is paused now. It's not playing. All right, I'm going to go over and switch over to this guy, which is TWiP Pro.
So have you not done this live before then?
Yeah. What are you trying to say, Jake?
You have done it live?
Yes.
Oh, I thought... so you have done it live before. I thought they were all recorded.
No, we've occasionally done a couple of them live, and I kind of oscillate between should we do this live or should we do it recorded, based on the number of people that show up to the live. So, got a special guest here, got a rock star, Russell Brand. I mean, Jake Hicks is in.
Just don't even.
That's an inside joke. All right, let's dive in. The first shot is from Steven Sharf. What's up, Steven? Oh, Steven's in the chat, I believe. So, Steven, we're going to critique your shot live. Let's go back and see what you put under it. Documentary portraiture, locally renowned robot sculptor, Clayton Bailey. Let's take a look. Look at that. What do you think about this for a portrait? I love these environmental portraits.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, environmental. Yeah, which is good. Yeah, really cool. Really cool.
Yep.
I mean, straight off the bat, I do like the fact that you have put him in his environment, like we've just said. And I'm usually a little bit hesitant on black and white, as you may have guessed from my own portfolio. But I do think that there are certain cases where it works, and I think people who have we got a lot of texture, whether it be in the skin or a lot of detail going on in the background and stuff here. So I do think it works. Yeah, that is an impressive beard, though.
That is. I'm jealous.
That is impressive, man.
Yeah, it's so interesting to get different takes on this stuff because Troy Miller, whom you know Troy very well. Troy is a black and white fiend. He loves black and white, and even more if it's infrared black and white. So, it sort of I fall in on it is if color is not adding to the story of the photo itself, then consider
when is color not adding.
See, I'm talking to the gels guy here.
Yeah, it's just no way. Yeah, I really struggle with black and white, and that may be because of my background. Like at college and university, it was always people would turn something black and white and call it art, which I really struggled with. I think you got to have a reason, like you say, to turn it black and white. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if it's adding to the story, if black and white, everything's a tool, right? Even color, right? I mean, you know that better than most humans on the planet. Everything's a tool, and if used properly, it can tell the story of what you're trying to tell, even if it's a portrait or a fashion shot, right?
Yeah, and I would also say that maybe there's a better way of saying it. Maybe color could be distracting from the image. So like here, if for example, we could have a million different colored books on the shelf there. They could all be different colors, maybe different colors on the book on the table there, different colors on the flags. That would actually be very visually distracting. We want him in his environment. So the choice to go black and white here was potentially the right one, so that the attention is drawn to him, not the brightly colors all around him. So yeah, makes sense.
Right. Unless that was part of the story, right? If the part of the story was, this guy assembled all these knickknacks, over the course of years, and there's some compelling story behind it, then you'd want to not de-emphasize them by taking the color away.
Yeah.
Love it. Cool.
Critique wise, the only thing that I'm struggling with is the book in the foreground. As humans, we are visually drawn very quickly to text in an image, and quickly it can be distracting overall. And plus, we have that's one of it's a very strong geometric shape as well. We are drawn to those. So I really struggle with text, and that book being in the foreground there, I don't know how I would have maybe placed it less, maybe just cropped in to one side, maybe on the table, so it was less distracting. But yeah, that would otherwise be my that would only be my feedback.
Yeah, I agree. I think if this was to that point, if this was in context of several other shots in a picture story where this book was in there, and you see this is sort of repeated item, and just kind of glimpsing at it, you understand, oh, this is that book again, and the whole thing was sort of about that book, or that book was a central player in the overall story, then it makes sense. But inverted like this, I hear it could add a little bit of frustration in an inverted shape that draws your eye to it and away from the subject, right?
Yeah, and I'm just talking about compositionally here, So yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure that book is fundamental to his story, but I think maybe in this instance it would be a case of making a decision as to what was more important, because visually that is going to be fighting. But in fairness, you could crop in here, maybe just crop in a little bit from the bottom, a little bit from the top, just come in, and we would be taken straight to his face rather than seeing that whole book. I don't think you would need to crop much here for that to change it dramatically.
Yeah, I'd almost see two different crops here. Like, I'd love to see the book back on the shelf, and since Steven said this guy's a robot maker, a robot sculptor, I'd want a sculpture of some of his work there, in front of him, if that's the story. Again, all of this is subjective, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right,
and that coffee cup is killing me. I have to say something. I have to, like, on the bottom right.
Is that killing your OCD? The coffee speaking in there. It's like either come in or leave. Stop standing in the doorway. I love it. You're holding the refrigerator door open. Either close it or get. All right, well, cool. Steven Sharp, thank you so much for your submission, man. We appreciate that. James Glenny's up next, and James Glenny says, sneaking a submission in under the wire, hopefully. Yep, you made it, man. Portrait of one of our office puppies. This one is the troublemaker. Oh, yeah. Look at that. That is the face of a felon right there. Look at him.
Just the tongue. The tongue really sets it off.
Yeah, nonconformist felon. It's probably the long hair. I don't know. The long hair.
I can hear you, Frederick. I can hear you.
Sorry. I'm not saying there's any resemblance, Jake. I'm just saying,
Obviously, on your current hair status would mean that you're an innocent angel, then I take it, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say, I got to bring us back up here. I mean, look, they say, what do they say? A cluttered desk is the sign of a genius mind. So this must mean I'm just like completely the opposite.
I need that printed down on the t-shirt, because there is nothing more cluttered than my workspace. I can assure you.
You're apparently a genius, and I think there's a little bit of Scandinavian running through my blood, because my everything is very Scandinavian.
OCD now, is it?
That's OCD, fine, okay. Scandinavian OCD, same thing. IKEA. So back to the pup here. What do you think, James Glenny? This is James Glenny's office pup.
I like obviously we got some greens here in the collar and the background behind, but most importantly, I do like the separation that we've got with the subject in the foreground. This is something that I'm always looking for, whatever it may be, portrait-wise, but I do think it is important to have a very clean separation between foreground and background. I mean, I tend to do that with color in a studio, but obviously what we've done here is we've done it with a aperture, so obviously shot it wide open at 2.8 or something to knock out that background. So I think that does really help to bring the character forward. In terms of feedback, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more personal input from yourself, and I would do that maybe with look at some color toning in this. It feels like you've recorded the event in front of you, and now I'd like to see you input some of yourself into that with maybe some some toning or something. That's just to give the overall image, just to tie it together with maybe a little bit more personality or tone.
I love that. Yeah, that's a good way to put that. Inject yourself into the image versus just showing us what was captured with the sensor and the optics that you chose to use at the time. Yeah, that's fantastic. One of the cool things, and I don't know if you can echo this, but one of the interesting things that drove me to be interested in portraiture was the optics and the fact that you could get yourself a nice camera and get a really shallow depth of field lens attached to that camera, and essentially anything becomes a background at that point. And for some reason that just seduces me as like, oh wow, you could just look at that brick wall, but blurry it would look like just orange yellow mush back there. Do you care?
Yeah,
I mean, like from your standpoint, doing the fashion and stuff, do you subscribe to that, or do you like everything tack sharp from the nose all the way to the background?
That's a good question, and I think the topic that we're discussing is something that has seen a lot of iterations over the years. I mean, back when I used to shoot film, we used to shoot wide open because we had to.
Yeah.
In terms of we needed as much light into the lens as possible, and like to go up to 400, 800 ISO in film wise would be disastrous grain, with the amount of grain. So we did shoot a lot of wide open stuff back then. And then I think we all came away from it a little bit. And then professional photographers went back to shooting wide open to try and distinguish themselves and separate themselves from like the iPhone shooters at a wedding and that sort of stuff. I think that we had an era where images that were shot at f1.2 or 1.8 were just classed as professional images over like an everyday pocket shooter or mobile phone shot. Because mobile phones, everything is, it's like f64 or something, everything is in focus. So I think we went through a phase of trying to distinguish ourselves from that. And now I think we're coming away from that again and coming into sort of more of a sharper, seeing everything pin sharp. And, cameras and manufacturers like Sony and Fuji, I think, are really pushing that with the type of tech that they've brought out. I think we're starting to see more of that look coming back.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you hit on a really interesting point there, and that's back in the day. It was that was how we determined who was a pro photographer, was by shallow depth of field, because you could only get that with expensive lenses on certain kinds of cameras. What do you think now that, like you said, that those days are sort of waning, and with the advent of computational photography and being able to change your at least programmatically change the blur or the bokeh of the background after the fact in post on your phone and get a shot close to this relatively seamlessly and easily? Where do you think that does to the whole idea of, professionalism and just the art in general?
I think, it's tough. And again, I think I personally believe that we're seeing a push more towards everything being razor sharp, and I'm a bit in two minds as to how I feel about that. I would say that personally I have done that as well, and I think that it's maybe been a subconscious knee-jerk reaction to just everybody with the camera is just shooting at f1.2. Like, if it's not f1.2, then you're just not, like, why are you bothering sort of mentality. And it was kind of getting under my skin a little bit. So I feel like I've been coming away from that.
Interesting.
So it's going to be cyclical, but yeah, I would argue that you'll probably see more everything coming closer to f5.6, f8, f11 type range in the portraits. Because like most lenses, like their absolute sharpest is usually around f8. That's their sweet spot.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting how art sort of ebbs and flows, and if too many people like a thing, then that thing's no longer cool, right? So
basically, exactly,
yeah. Or something feels normal, then artists rail against it and do something that feels less normal to sort of shock people into.
And I was also really conscious of it being me sometimes using it as a crutch. I'm a keen advocate of keeping separation between foreground and background, but like the F number was definitely a crutch. So I have consciously been trying to think of other ways of doing it. And you've seen that maybe with my lighting, maybe add a hair light, add some separation between the background and foreground. But thinking of other ways that I can inject that depth, if you like, without just using an expensive lens.
Yeah, love it. Cool. All right, great shot. And thank you. Who's it? James Glenny. Thank you, James, for this shot. All right, next shot up is from Tim Engle. Pandering. Now you're ready for this one, right? Let's see what Tim very rarely leaves long comments. 2 gel setup. All effects are done in camera. Look at that. Go ahead, Joe. I mean, let go. I know you gotta like this one. You can't hate it.
I have to say, Tim, this is an excellent image. Yeah, it is an excellent image, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. But I would say that it is also a textbook image. In the textbook, as in, there's so many right things about it. We just mentioned before about creating this depth in an image, and like in the foreground here, we obviously have these highlights that are that they're indiscernible as to what they are, but they tell us that there is a foreground to this shot. We obviously have her in the midground there, and then behind that we have her reflection, which is out of focus again. So we have these 3 very distinct planes, which I think is brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And we have pops of color in there as well, just to tie it up. But otherwise, overall, a very clean palette. Reds and blues do go well together. So we have the red outfit, the red lips, and we have the blues there from the actual blue gel. Creating that sort of complementary red blue look. It's not quite complementary, but it's perceived as that. So yeah, I mean, and again, we have, even though this is very dark hair, we have a lot of detail in the hair as well. This is again something that I look for. People struggle to get detail with the lighting in hair, so he's done that remarkably well as well. The only issue that I have is that there isn't a catch light in that front eye, which is killing me. Yeah.
What would you do about that? I mean, would you just add that in post if this was going to a client and you absolutely needed to use this particular shot?
So what I'm talking about here now is one of those things that a client would never notice or request, really. But it is one of those things that would look off to a client and they may not know why. So yes, I have to say that I would probably look at just putting even just a hint or just even the faintest glimmer of a tiny catchlight in there. Just helps to give that front facing eye just a little bit more shape and shine. Because the back eye does have it, which is a real pain. But yeah, that's just me, and I am definitely nitpicking there. But that is, I would add that, yes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm always curious about that, because if you would, catch lights bring life to an image, right? Because we're used to seeing, for the most part, a little glimmer, a little shine. It shows that the person is healthy, their eyes are wet, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I wonder, would you, on this particular shot of Tim's, and I agree, Tim's work is always over the top, exemplary. But if you look at this shot, would you, and you've already said it, I guess, but you would have added an additional catch light to that close eye, but would you have minimized the catch light in the far eye? Or would you have just left it alone or removed it? Or how would you handle that? And we are nitpicking, by the way, Tim. I know you're watching this. We're nitpicking to the Instagram.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no question. Yeah, we are definitely picking holes for sure. But no, I would leave the back catch light as is. I would just clone stamp in from that one, but I would probably cut it in half and just reduce the opacity, so it's not exactly the same. And we know, visually, we know that it's kind of hidden, and we know that we are cheating. So it would be maybe, like I said, not quite as bright and maybe half the size. So it's just as long as there is something there, we don't need to see it any more accurately than that.
Yeah. Cool work. Good job, Tim Engle. All right, moving right along here. Next one up is from Jake Hicks.
Wow, if we have to pick a winner, I
mean, come on. This is you just promoting this, but just take us through the shot, since this is in there and people can see it in TWiP Pro. Give us a little history of this shot and did you put the Vaseline on? How did this go?
Somebody's got to do it, Frederick.
It's a tough job, right?
So. This shot is this is one of my newer lighting setups that I've fallen in love with recently, and it's actually a lighting setup that is in my big studio lighting in small spaces workshop, which revolves around trying to be creative in very tight corners. Here in the UK, I know it's less of a problem there in the US, but here in the UK, we don't have a huge amount of space to shoot sometimes, and sometimes we're on location, maybe it'd be in a hair salon or something like that. We don't have a huge amount of space. We have a lot of photographers here who are maybe working from home in their own front room and that sort of stuff. So the workshop's been really popular because it is about showing people that small space is not an excuse for you not having very creative lighting. So this, for example, was shot in a 3 by 2 meter space, and it's about taking control of that light. So here I'm actually down quite low, and I'm on about 28mm lens. So I'm really close to her, if you can understand the distortion that's going on there.
Yeah. So you're down low. You're shooting at approximately waist level, and you're about maybe 2 feet from her, roughly 2 or 3 feet?
Exactly. Yeah. It's actually really, like I said, 28mm, which you would never normally shoot a portrait at 28mm like that.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's not for everybody. Don't get me wrong. I mean, she's obviously a phenomenally beautiful woman, and you can get away with a lot more in terms of focal length. I mean, you can't really take a bad picture of her, so like you can get away with shooting at a wide angle lens like that, whereas you couldn't take a picture with me with a 28mm lens. So
well, 28.
yeah,
I mean, the
you just need to
problem.
be mindful.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The problem with wide angle lenses, especially when shooting people and particularly females, is it exaggerates parts of the body that you may or may not want to exaggerate. Right. So if you're shooting low, it's going to make hips look larger. If you're shooting from the top down, it's going to make them look like they have a bigger head than they do on than in reality. So is that? But unless you're trying to work that though, right? And you're trying to use those distortions like you have here, right? She looks perfectly proportioned to me in this shot, but this may not necessarily be what she looks like in person, right?
Yes, that's true. And I think that is that's a skill that comes over time. I mean, those of you that may have seen some of my work on my website, I mean, 90% of that I'm actually sat on the floor taking photographs of those people, and I'm looking up at them with like a 58mm lens, and again, you wouldn't normally think that those types of fashion editorial shots are shot with a wide lens like that, because normally they're 85, 105, 200mm is more standard. But I'm using my position and the angle of my lens to give power to the person. Like she looks to me, and this is my goal when I'm photographing women like this, is to, like, she has a lot of power in this image. She seems to be very dominant in this image. She seems to be very powerful in this image. I'm looking up at her, and the wide angle lens is just exaggerating that. And the shots that you see on my site do the same. I'm sat on the floor looking up at them with that wide angle, and it's making them look a little bit taller, a little bit more powerful in the shot. And that's a creative choice that I've sort of made over time.
How are you
like
handling the background. So you mentioned in the UK space. I think in any large city, right, you're going to be space limited.
That's true.
In the case of a shot like this, what were the dimensions of the area that you're working in? Was it just kind of like right behind you is your kitchen
meters.
Sink? How is it?
Yeah. So 3 by 2 meters. Yeah.
Oh wow. And so there's some Photoshop in here, right?
And
there's Photoshop in here in terms of removing background elements and extending the white out and all that.
No.
Okay. Wow.
No. So and the ceiling is 1.5 meters, 2 meters away. Yeah. So really low ceiling, and so it's really small. But really, the whole premise of what I'm trying to teach at this workshop is really just trying to take back control of the light. Too often I see people, turn up at a big studio and just set the lights up, in the four corners, and just turn everything on and just flood the area with light.
Yeah.
But that's not really creating any shape. If we look here on her shoulder, for example, coming across from the hair, we have highlights on the shoulder blade there, coming across to shadow, to some more highlights on the middle, coming across to more shadow, back to some highlights. So there's just this bodyscape of highlight, shadow, and that's creating that 3D depth that we have. That's not only picking her out of the image, but is just a lot more engaging to look at as well.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic shot. I have a feeling Tim Engle is going to be heading to the drugstore after this to get some baby oil, because we're going to see some shots like this.
I don't want to. What he does in his own time is.
Well, Tim's a bodybuilder too.
There you go.
I know. Okay, so here's the last question. So Troy Miller, who's going to see this if he's not watching right now, he has this visceral reaction to appendages being amputated. Like fingers, legs, knees. If in the case of this shot, it's 3/4, obviously, so it's okay to chop the legs off. But he would. My guess is, and I'm channeling Tim here. My guess is he would say something about the hand or the fingers being cut off. What do you say? Like, what's your mindset? Because everything in an image, when I look at a professional image, I know everything is 100% intentional in that shot. That's the definition of a pro. So what would you say to that if he gave you that criticism that why'd you cut her hands off? It would have been a 10 had it not been for that.
Yeah. Really.
Besides telling him to go pound sand because you're an artist, right? So
yeah. I mean, anybody who shoots black and white. I mean, really. No. Awesome. It's totally justified, and it's something that I struggle with, and I would say that sometimes it comes down to a compromise. I'm not photographing a landscape, I'm not photographing still life, I am photographing a person, and I am trying to get I'm trying to get this collaboration between myself and a subject, so that when the shot is there, like the face is the key. And she could have given me this face, and the hair could have flicked up perfectly like this with the wind. Yeah. And maybe I could have gone, oh, can you bring that arm up to the hip? And we would have lost that moment. I think you've got to come down to a compromise. But my overarching guide, it would be to agree with him. And I never crop at a join. So a join would be a wrist, a join would be a knee, a hip. Like I'm always going to crop sort of halfway between those, you know. So you know, it's going to be mid thigh, or it's going to be at the actual stomach rather than the actual hip, and that sort of stuff. And coming through the elbows is a big one. Now, had this been the wrist, this would have been a delete instantly. I may have even come in a little bit on this, because I feel that we are constrained by this 3:2 ratio, and we have to be mindful of the damage that can be done if we let's zoom out and get the hand in. That's true, but you also add a lot of dead space that is wasted when we're photographing the human form. So I struggle with that constantly. How do I fill this 3:2? This is not just a random crop that I see people on the internet doing, which I don't have a problem with, I guess, but maybe I'm old school in the fact that I do stick to at least a consistent crop. If we zoom out to keep the fingers in, I just think we lose some of that impact personally. Yeah.
Love it. Last question on this. Post-processing, are you in Lightroom, Photoshop only, Capture One, none of the above?
This went to Lightroom and then into Photoshop. Yeah, so Lightroom is just for me to get a grounding of color tone, really. You know, I'm in there playing around with colors, and I'm probably getting it 75-80% of the way color wise in Lightroom, because that's where the most data is before I start. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in RAW, before I start pushing and pulling too much. And then in Photoshop, it's just removing any pimples, sharpening,
stray hairs that don't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be like maybe clothing labels and that sort of stuff. I think this corset that she's wearing here, for example, actually has straps, and I didn't know that she tucked them in, and they were sticking out the back, so we just got to tidy them up just to keep that line nice and clean. Yeah. You know, this image is a very clean image, and there's a lot of clean lines. So although there's no reason to take that out, it stops that clean line at the top of the corset there from being seen. So it's just about making sure that everything's working with one another, as it were.
Fantastic. Cool shot, man. Congratulations. I love it. But all your shots are great. So
I've been doing it a long time. That's all, Frederick. It's just, it's just only a matter. It's just averages. You shoot enough, you're bound to get a couple of good ones.
Yeah, there you go. Machine gun, right? You're bound to hit something.
Exactly.
All right. Next shot up is from Armando Brook. Speaking of Pride Week, he says today was Gay Pride Parade in Sao Paulo. This year was like 3 million people. I go because people like to photograph, and I love to make street portraits. Just natural light and edited in Lightroom with this Nikon D800. Let's take a look. Wow, look at the colors in this shot. And again with that bokeh, right? How you can separate 3 million people and still pop your subject out of the background. Amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Great use of depth of field. And this, I don't know, did he say what lens this was? Did he say, or did you just say?
Let me go back and look. He said, the 7200 f4 at 165.
Okay. F4. Yeah, I was going to say this looks like a long lens. So this was probably fairly zoomed, I would have thought. Yeah. Which will help with that separation as well. And separation, I mean, between subject and background. But yeah, immediately colors is huge here, is huge. And the other thing that strikes you is obviously the expression. So, I mean, this is personal to the photographer as well. You know, I wonder why you decided to keep this in and what that says. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just think that it's a very unique expression and gives across a lot of feeling. immediately, and I just wonder what that is, what you're trying to say with this character with that. The only thing that I'm slightly concerned with is with the color. When we're pushing the colors this much, sometimes we do get some color breakup. So like we can see in the top there, the colors are starting to clump together a little bit. So yeah, that would be my only concern, but I don't know whether that would override the impact of making the colors this saturated. So what I mean by that is, if we didn't pump up the saturation, how much do we lose? And maybe we lose too much, because it is such an impactful image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And looking at the detail in this, just the detail of the makeup and how you can, and you know this, I mean, you deal with makeup artists all the time, but when you look at a shot like this, you actually, I don't deal with makeup artists all the time, but I can see the illusion that this person and the makeup artist, whether it was this person or a third party, was trying to create, like the larger lips, even the eyebrows are not real. The real eyebrows are down below. Those are painted on eyebrows up there. So it's shifting the facial features. All the facial features have been shifted up, it looks like, on this. And do you find, like, when in your work, Jake, when you're either directing a makeup artist or collaborating with a makeup artist, do you do this sort of magic artistry with the makeup, or do you push that off to post-production?
Yeah, so if a shot like this, for example, where the face is taking up a good solid third of the frame, which is quite normal for a portrait. It's like you can't get away with doing a lot of this in makeup. So what I mean by that is, for example, I see some makeup artists making the lips larger on girls, whether they're doing it for themselves or in photo shoots, and they make the lips larger by overlapping the lipstick and painting the actual lips on top of the top lip there, as we can see there. Obviously that's highly exaggerated, but it is something that I see makeup artists doing. Now, unfortunately, in a still image where you have the time to look at that and you can see it in all its glory, that stands out immediately. So yes, I would say that if I was to see that happening, I would maybe go, look, if we need the lips bigger, then we can't get away with that with makeup. I may be able to plump them up a little in Photoshop if that's what you want, if we're trying to sell a lipstick or something like that. Like, you couldn't get away with doing that on a lipstick ad. It would just look, ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'd probably have to do that in post by just plumping up the lips later on.
Use the tools. Very cool. All right, Armando, thank you for that shot. All right, next shot up is from Thomas Aaron, the bare knuckle boxer. Let's bring that up. Look at that. No color and not a female. Jake.
Hey, this one's shot in portrait orientation, so he gets a point for that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so looking at this shot, I'm trying to figure out what's going on in here. I can't see what's in the shadow area in the foreground, or is there anything in the shadow area? My brain is confused. Well, what do you see?
Yeah, so that would be my first. And this is difficult because this is clearly an artistic image. And what I mean by that is that there is clearly, it's not supposed to be necessarily obvious. Right. This is not like a corporate headshot where everything is, nice in focus, everything's cleanly lit, everything's exposed. We see everything that's going on. Nothing's being hidden from us. Here, this is not one of those images. And this is, we got split lighting here. So what that means is that one side of the face is lit and the other side is in complete darkness. And the other thing that strikes me is, had this image not had a title, would we know what's going on? And is that important? That might not be important to you as the shooter. So, disregard if it isn't. Yeah. But yeah, I can't. To me, he looks like he's holding up something, a bag or a fabric or something like that, because it's so dark there. Yeah. And to me, that is ominous, and that tends to not something to have necessarily attached to a portrait. But again, this is all speculation, and I don't have enough data to. I'm just giving my feedback on what I'm seeing. So yeah, all of this could be, yeah, Jake, I want it to look ominous. I want it to look hidden. I don't want you to know what he's doing. Like all of that could be the actual intent. So like that's totally fine.
Right, like with
But
Stephen
yeah,
Sharp's
that's my
robot
concern.
photo, right? With like we were saying,
Exactly.
context is everything. If this was, you know, if I don't know, it depends, right? So if a photo has to stand on the merits of the photo by itself with no supporting words, then I think you have to be more literal and more obvious within the work itself and not rely on the caption to explain what you were trying to do in the image. Also, if there are no surrounding or supporting characters, i.e. other images that sort of lead up to this one that tell you, oh, yeah, that's that thing I saw in the other shot, you know, then you don't know. But as a standalone, looking at it like this with no words behind it, then our brain is forced to try to figure out what's going on. And then, you know, if you can't, you get frustrated and move on. Right.
Exactly, and don't get me wrong, cinema uses that tool all the time. Like hiding stuff from us is actually more powerful than showing stuff. I mean, like horror film is classic for it. Like sometimes we don't see the the bad guy or whatever it is for the entire movie, and that's what keeps us, you know, even more fearful or even more on edge than if we were to see him. And you know, so don't get me wrong, that is definitely a tool to be used like anything else for sure.
Yeah, horror movies and films and shows, etc. They use all kinds of tools, right? The editing, they'll use that ominous grinding soundtrack, you know, and plus, you know, when you're sitting down to watch this thing that you're supposed to be frightened at some point. So you're kind of on edge by default versus coming in cold to something. And you know, so yeah, but cool. I mean, that's the magic of photography and artistry, or any kind of art, I would imagine, is just, you know, there are no wrong or right answers. Like the artist of this shot could have whatever reasons he wanted to have created it in this way, and it's not wrong at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just add that, I mean, if not that anybody is asking me what I would do if I was in this situation, but if this was my shot, I would, for example, maybe turn him like 45 degrees to his left and just have that light, you know, raking across. You know, he's clearly a fit guy with, you know, with a lot of, you know, shape and form in his body there. So like, maybe, you know, seeing some of that would be like to get that sculpting from the light coming across him would be my route, should we say.
Love it. And we are asking you what you think. That's the whole purpose, Jake. So it's like a pilot saying, I know you guys don't really want me flying the plane, but if I were flying this plane, I would pull up right now. Just saying.
Just saying.
Eric Pronsky's up next, and Eric says, this is Luis Manuel Molina. I had the fortune of being invited to the apartment of Luis in Havana to photograph. Politics set aside, Fidel Castro considered him the best guitarist in the country and honored him at many events. He sung his guitar to us. In this image, his eyes are looking down as he was so into the music. I had a few images of his eyes open and looking up, but this one was better as it showed how into the music he was. Side lighting from a window in his flat with a Sony A900 24-70 lens at f8. Let's take a look. Look at that. I love the eyes closed. I love the eyes closed in this shot because you can feel it. Although with the eyes open, you know, and him jamming, maybe biting his bottom lip or something. That would have been cool. No, I dig it though. I like this shot.
Is it? Would you call this type of music jamming, Frederick?
You could jam on anything, man. You can jam on trash cans inverted. Come on.
I mean, the type.
You're in London. Come on, you've seen it. Anything can be an instrument.
That's true.
Yeah. But what do you think? Let's start.
We call them rubbish bins, but I mean that's fine. Yeah,
rubbish bins. Of course you do. Yeah. So you like more syllables. So.
Hey, look. If we know how to use them, we're going to use them. Just saying.
Okay. Now people are getting a glimpse into our friendly banter. Jake and I banter like this all the time. So it's our own little Cold War or Tea Party.
But no, I mean, like, and I like the just, you know, the extra description here as well, and I think that like when I know that there is a try to avoid it, look at the image first, take it in an eye. But I do definitely enjoy when the comments are there, because I think it, you know, can add so much to an image, and it's just we don't normally, or you don't always have access to that amount of extra info, but it's always good to have it if it's there. And I think this helps explain like the eyes here as well, because I was a bit like, what is, is he posed like this, or like, is he actually playing with his eyes closed, or have you posed him specifically with his eyes closed? That did sort of help to
but when you immediately, like, if you saw the shot without the caption at all hanging up framed, would you, like, as a photographer, would you think it was a mistake that his eyes were closed, or would you just think that he's, sort of into the music?
I think because, and again, I'm imprinting my own style into an image immediately, and I can't help but do that. But for me, I would have maybe just wanted to see just a little bit of movement in the hands to signify that there was some like that there was some action or playing going on here. And even shooting with ambient and daylight, if he's staying still and you're staying still, but the hands are moving, then you're going to get movement in the hands, but the head and the face will be still. So like, again, that's, it's difficult for me to take myself out of it and how I would shoot it. But yeah, so for me, I thought this may have been staged and posed, and I was maybe a little bit like, no, there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, that was my first reaction. Yeah. It's nice, the colors as well, like very, uniform. We got the complementary orange and blues here, which is pretty strong. But again, I feel like I just want to see maybe some color toning going on here that would help to just make this stand out even more to me. Like, I just feel like this is a record. There's nothing wrong at all with just recording something. But for me, I would want to see somebody just adding something a little bit extra to this personally.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Moving right along. And thank you for that, Eric Pronsky. All right, the next shot in the queue is from Alicia. And Alicia says, Jeepers Peepers, there is a paint shop downtown that regularly re-graffitis a side wall of their own building. The fun of shooting there is, you will never see the same backdrop twice. The fun of this shot was trying to find a space of colors that could accentuate her intense eye color. Hello, Hazel. Shot with a Nikon D7000 at 120 millimeters, 1/80th of a second, ISO 320. Let's take a look. Yeah, look at those eyes. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, great image. Yeah, beautiful image. And interesting story as well, that, obviously you have, a shop or a store painting its walls and stuff regularly. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the shots that you typically create, not always, but typically create, are very meticulously constructed and concepted, and you could see throughout the whole thing you've thought about it from conception to final publishing, of the shot, and every little hair and detail and pimple and tag and all that stuff has been addressed. A shot like this, not necessarily so, and not that that's right or wrong. This is more of a photojournalistic street photography type portrait. Where do you fall on that? Like, is there, like, applying Jake Hicks sensibilities to sort of serendipitous street photography, is there a way to bring some of you into these kinds of shots? Should people be walking around with strobes and popping lights in there to add a little dimension? Or is it okay just to walk around and just, grab shots as they strike your fancy?
I think you have to understand your intent. And that sounds really obvious, but there's just so many of us to just go out with a camera and shoot. Nothing wrong with that. But I do think that if you go out with a bit more intent as to what you want to do, then I do think that the result will eventually be geared more towards your liking, and you'll end up with images that you're ultimately happier with. And when I mean intent, is I would assume that the intent here, as she mentioned, is looking for a background to, complement the eyes and that sort of thing. But really, 99% of this image is her character. Like, this is a great example of the photographer not getting in the way of a portrait. Who was it? Tim's image before, beautiful image, like highly constructed, highly crafted. But the photographer is getting in the way of the character there. Now, there is nothing wrong with that, but there's a very different intent as to what Tim's trying to do. Tim's trying to add that extra visual element to the overall image, whereas here we have an image that is just all about just saying what a beautiful, happy, friendly character this woman is. Like, and like, it's such a genuine smile as well, and that comes across immediately. Like, to us as humans, seeing other pictures like this, like that smile is just not fake and forced, which is so powerful. So I think it is nice when you see images, where you are just trying to complement that rather than trying to add your own stamp on it, as it were. But I think like her own stamp is a bit more subtle by choosing the background and complementing the the blue jacket with the blue background and the blue jeans and that sort of thing. And like that contrast that we have is a little bit more subtle. My work, for example, is like I find it a challenge, and I like to rally to the challenge of I'm very fortunate to get to photograph some very beautiful people, and that I like to challenge that, and I like the fact that as an artist I have the ability for the first thing that you see when you look at the image is not just a photograph of a pretty girl, but that's an interesting image, or that the lighting or something. I'm adding something to that rather than just a beautiful person. And I think that there are occasions where a team, you have a stylist or a makeup artist, and everybody is trying to look in this image. I want my makeup to be the one thing that is just that's what you think about when you see that image. Or the stylist, I want the one thing when you see this image to be wow, incredible clothing, or the model to be I want the pose and the my energy to shine through. If you have all of those things, which is real rare, but if you have all of those things working in synergy, you can get some just phenomenal work, where everybody is just fighting, and you just get such a great image.
Well, that sounds, I don't know, that sounds almost like a nightmare, because it sounds like you can only have one chef.
It is,
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And if everyone is the chef, and they think
selfish,
they think no, this soup should have a celery. The celery should be overpowering everything, and the other person says no, it should be the nutmeg. Let's put more nutmeg in there.
I hear you. I get you, but I think if you do this long enough, like you realize that so many artists are incredibly selfish, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally, but I do think that you can get an instance where everybody is just trying to do their absolute damnedest to create this phenomenal piece. Then like it does stand out. It really does. I get you. It can be a nightmare for sure. And at the end of the day, if the makeup's shit, then it's the photographer's fault.
Right. Yeah, you're the fall guy.
Unfortunately. Exactly. Yeah. So like unfortunately, the door doesn't swing both ways in that regard. Like if the makeup's amazing, wow, the makeup artist is amazing. Unfortunately, it doesn't always swing both ways. But I personally absolutely revel in those jobs where I know that I'm fighting with other creatives to stand out, and because everybody just steps it up. But that's just me personally, and I can see a point that being a nightmare.
I wonder. I mean, it's situational, right? So every group is going to interact differently, but just using the too many cooks in the kitchen analogy, or a military op where there's multiple people with different objectives, or different definitions of success.
The military is not or should not be creative. Really.
Watch it.
Yeah, I know, but you know what I mean. Like, I think there are situations. I wouldn't particularly want the commander-in-chief to, well, that's a different subject, but let's get off that analogy. But I put it like this. When I'm photographing, so was it last year? Anyway, a while ago, I was shooting a movie poster, and we had to photograph the cast, and it was like 6 key subjects, and actors and models, they can be dramatic, or they can be quite flamboyant or loud, or you can have any number of them, but there was an actor there who was a real pain in the ass. There's absolutely no other word for it. Very in your face, very like everything's got to be my own way, and but he gave the absolute best, phenomenal images. Like the character, the expression, just the absolute, just dominating the frame, dominating the image. Yeah, and I loved it. Like, I'm not like I'm an artist. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can assure, like, don't get me wrong. I love to get on with people, and I love to have a drink with anybody. But when I'm shooting, I want to get the best possible image. And if that means that I have to put up with somebody who's going to be a dick on set, but going to give phenomenal energy behind, in front of a lens, fine, absolutely. I'd far rather that than somebody who's trying to be my best friend all day, but just giving me just flaccid, just nothingness.
Yeah.
When I put the camera on them. And like, we all got to make that choice. Like, but for me, there is absolutely no contest as to what I would prefer.
Stephen Sharf is in the chat, and he says this is a great discussion. He wants to know who in these situations has the final say. Like, if you've got a team of people, of A players or A type personalities, who gets the final say as to what the final dish is going to look like?
It depends on how diplomatic you want to be about it. There's a couple of routes. One route is that you can be the iron fist, as it were, and go, look, I think this looks best. But like, there is a fine line, and it comes with experience. But ultimately, I'm not going to have a go at somebody's makeup, and I wouldn't expect the makeup artist to have a go at my lighting. There is some give and take. But ultimately, you're the one taking the images, and I tend to go down the route of, if we got time, let's shoot that. Let's see what it looks like, and we'll take it from there. You've got the raws, so like, I never let an image that I'm not 110% happy with go out to be chosen. So put it like that.
Yeah.
Should we say?
No.
Like, they can have their own opinions on something, and we can test it, but like, it won't ever see the light of day.
Right. Good. Love it. Very educational so far. And just folks, by the way, that are watching this live, we're at the hour now. It's about 1:00. We're going to continue to press through these, but just know that the critique will be posted to the This Week in Photo website in the critique area after this is done, as well as within the community at TWiP Pro. So if you have to drop off, I understand, but we are going to continue. All right. Next shot is from Troy Miller. Look at him. Troy is here in spirit. Wastelander Patrol. Did he say patrol? Yeah, Wastelander Patrol is this shot. And it's not black and white. It is kind of sepia, but it's not black and white. So you can't immediately hate it, Jake Hicks. Come on.
No,
but we can give Troy all the crap we want because it's Troy Miller. So.
Yeah, no, and this is a great example of injecting some of your own style into a shot, like this, because I bet the raw of this shot, had we shot this on auto white balance in daylight or something like this, would look ridiculous. It would look like, what are those two standing on the rocks doing? But now, as soon as Troy's added this color to it, this tone and this vibe to it, it's helped to tie this whole image back as one, which I think is just like, without that tone, we lose so much. So this is a really, really good example of what color toning can do to not only add your own personality into a shot, but to tie everything else back in.
Yeah. Love it. I think this was shot at one of the recent F64 Live, or the first, not recent, the first F64 Live conference. Troy Miller, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But yeah, cool shot. All right. I love Troy's, let me bring him back up here. His little tagline is weddings and fire. I don't know if those two things necessarily go together, Troy Miller.
That is quite a niche you've got there.
Right? Weddings and fire. Lamb is up next. Lamb says, I was shooting a group of young BMX riders between the ages of 6 and 12 as they zoomed past me. Myself and them were strangers. During break time, I took the initiative to chat and showed them their photos. Their reaction was awesome, joyful, and more chat ensued. One of them asked if I could take some photos of him smoking a vape cigarette. I just couldn't believe it. I paused and looked at him. Then I agreed, as I did not want to kill the enthusiasm in his eyes. I sensed that the vape cigarette is a new toy to him, just trying to have some fun out of it. Yeah, look at that. Wow. No, Jake, are you a big vapor? Are you the vaping guy out there?
No, no, I
No.
haven't. No, no. I've given up smoking. I don't know, 6 years ago now, I suppose.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Yeah.
I actually used those new vape cigarettes to get off actual tobacco. So yeah,
Oh,
got
yeah.
there in the end.
Yeah. Well, now they're an entire industry into themselves now, as illustrated by
Yeah.
this kid. So this shot, when I first saw this, was thinking, well, composition, we can talk about the composition in a second, but I was thinking specifically that with all the controversy here in the US around vaping and it being in legislation around it and it being not good for kids and a gateway into actual smoking and all that stuff.
Isn't it illegal
It
for
is
kids?
not illegal. No, it is not yet. It's
What?
not. It is not illegal. Now, you mean for kids to smoke it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's regulated. Yeah, it's regulated. It's treated like tobacco now. I think 18 in some states and over can purchase it and use it.
There's 16 here.
Oh Jesus, yeah, 18, and in some places it's 21. So it's kind of like alcohol. It's regulated similarly to alcohol. But I was thinking
Yeah,
this
so
would be a good
16,
shot for a campaign. This looks like an ad campaign for either pro or anti vaping, right? Depending on how you want to position it.
Yeah, and I mean this is obviously a very powerful image, and we don't need to do too much to it here. And from a editorial or reportage standpoint, then yeah, you don't want to do anything to it really.
No.
Yeah, I would like. I'm struggling to not crop in and crop out of that green at the top there.
Oh no, I would
just
totally
to
crop that out. Yeah,
just to tighten up those horizontal lines, just to draw focus to him. But yeah, and just to center him up a little bit. But yeah, this is a very powerful image for sure. Yeah, and ironically, it's one of those images that is very timeless and could be almost shot anywhere in the world as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cropping wise, I think I would definitely crop the green strip out of the top and maybe keep the same aspect ratio, just sort of crop in on him to accentuate the smoke coming out of his nose, and draw attention directly to him. Like you said, center him up in the frame. And, the smoke is the star of the show and his eye contact with the photographer, I think. So,
Yeah.
very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I've seen some people do some crazy tricks on YouTube with that vape smokes, man. They're just like making.
Oh, you're the guy that's following them. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I look at all kinds of stuff.
No, Spine Project. No,
you do not want to look at my YouTube search history.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. No one will ever see
check
that.
out what the vape community is doing today.
Hey, anything that piques my interest, which is a lot of things, I start, going on little.
Nicely
rat
saved,
trails.
Frederick. I like it. Yeah, nicely
Hey,
saved.
that's what I do. It's press training at Apple. Joshua Sommerfeld is up next, and Joshua says, a portrait of my Twitch channel's mascot, Nyla. I made brand new hair for her just for this critique. As requested, I did a gel lighting tutorial in honor of our guest critic and applied it to one of my CG models. Ordinarily, I would not be okay with entering CGI in a photo critique competition setting. The render cam is mimicking a full-frame DSLR with an 85mm lens at f2.8. Look at that. Jake, you're going to be out of business, man. This is all done in the computer.
Let me get this straight. This is all done in CG.
There's no reality in this shot at all.
It's not just the face. It's not just the face then. This is all just like that. I mean, because it looks like, underarm has got a little bit of, stubble and texture there, like it would in reality. Like
That's Joshua. Yeah, that's just the whole thing does not exist ever and never did.
I'll get my coat then.
You're done. You could create your work wherever you want.
I mean, that's it. I'm done. I mean, there's me trying to do it in 3 meters by 2 meters. I can just do it, on a laptop.
You can do it on a laptop in a cafe.
That's crazy. Like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Does this make no seriously though? Does this make as someone who's been doing this for decades? Does someone that has this level of talent and that can recreate a shot like this from his mind's eye and do whatever he wants and have a model and put her in whatever position and dress her however he wants and light her however he wants, has access to every focal length ever made, every piece of lighting, backgrounds, etc., and can create this completely from imagination. Does that make you nervous, or do you literally think that in the future, maybe 10 years from now, when this technology advances, that this will be a threat to, quote, traditional photographers?
Excellent question, and certainly something that any self-respecting professional photographer must have asked themselves. But I would say that we all said the same thing about digital cameras when digital cameras came out. We're like, oh my God, everybody's got digital camera. Now everybody's been given the opportunity and the ability now to take phenomenal pictures. And you know what? It didn't quite turn out that way. You know, just because you have the tools doesn't necessarily mean you have the ability to shoot them or use them to their fullest capacity, as it were. Now, let's take the CG part out of this image for a second. Let's just pretend that, you know, this is or isn't CG and just look at it from a lighting and image standpoint. I would say that I'm concerned with the model being, you know, drifting into the background there. There's no clear definition between subject and background, so we lack a certain depth there. The lighting itself is like fine. Maybe I would say that the green is nice and high, so we have those highlights from above. I would maybe potentially like to see the red light a little bit higher as well, so that complements the green light on the left hand side. And like these aspects are all part of what makes a photographer a better photographer, should we say. And just because we have the best tools available to us doesn't necessarily mean that we know how to implement them in the best possible way from a visual standpoint. Because I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that the lighting that I'm explaining here is from a visual standpoint as to how I believe aesthetically would make that image more pleasing overall.
I think it's even remarkable that we're able to sit here and look at a completely CGI image and have you critique it, someone who's a professional at photographing people and women, especially with colored gels, and have you provide Joshua with lighting advice on how to make this.
Agreed.
I mean, because he, this is on his computer. While we're watching this, he could theoretically be there dragging lights around and looking at what you're saying real time.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
That's just amazing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you say, I've been called in on video sets as well, just to move or just to direct the lighting. Is it the same thing? I mean, I'm being called, I'm not touching a camera at any point. I'm being called in to help direct the lighting. I mean, is that something that could happen in the future? I get called into a tech lab and I just get asked to direct the lighting. It will probably be a Zoom call, just saying. Yep, yes. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Of course, Frederick. Yeah.
Yeah. No need to travel to look at a screen, my friend. It's going to be 2020 soon.
I live in hope. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, we've all seen images already. I know that everybody here watching this now has seen images that have been purely CG. I mean, the car industry has been doing it for years. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but it's like in the 80s or 90s percentage of the IKEA catalog is all CG. Like it's a major part of the industry that CG has already taken away from still shooters. It struggles, and it's still struggling at the moment with faces. I mean, he has sidestepped that by making this face clearly not real, but yeah, we do struggle heavily with faces, hence the uncanny valley situation that we deal with now. But with they just brought out an algorithm the other day that you have two computers, two AIs working with one another. Like one is making faces and the other one is trying to decipher whether it's a real face or not, and they are machine learning how to make faces. Like that can only go on for so long, before you get results that are,
that's scary. I mean, there's been all kinds of that deep fake stuff has been in the news again, with the CGI created imposters, that you can create, say, Kim Jong or the U.S. president or someone saying things that look realistic, but they didn't actually say. So, and it's in its infancy now, because I mean, you could do that on your almost on your phone. You could do that level. Imagine if you threw real computing power at it and added a half a decade of experience to it, then it really makes 2025 look scary in terms of trying to separate reality from fiction, especially when it comes to people with limited intelligence and that have a knee-jerk reaction to whatever they see and read online. So it's scary. It's scary. And
Without question, absolutely. I mean, scary is a very polite way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. But I mean, like us as creatives, and the operative word here is artists. We have to be ahead of the curve. I mean, like, industry is going to change. It's always going to change. Look at taxi drivers. Taxi drivers are up in arms about Uber and how
yeah,
they've ruined that industry. But we're staring down the barrel of automated cars. Uber is about to be is about to be scared with that one. Like,
yeah,
every industry changes. My
yeah.
industry in the last 20 years, I was up in arms with digital photography. Like, what? Like, really? That won't catch on. Like,
That's awesome.
there's always going to be change, and I think you can only stay ahead of the curve if you're gonna really just knuckle down on being different, have that style, have that creativity, implement your own personality into your shots, your own vision, and that's what I try and do, and that's what keeps me ahead of other people trying to replicate my gel stuff. Just try and stay ahead of that curve.
Staying ahead of the curve. Speaking of staying ahead of the curve, and we'll leave this shot, but looking at a shot like this that Josh would submit, and sort of looking at your skill set and history with this type of sort of gel pretty girl photography models, etc., do you see a path of trajectory where you're going to need to add this to your sort of 3D modeling and illustration to your tool belt of things that you can create? Or are you going to basically stay the course like you did with film versus digital?
I would say, yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I would say that for me, based on experience, the answer is to, rather than to try and add something ad hoc like this, which is clearly a dedicated skill in its own right, I would be smarter to try and find another string to the bow, as it were, that is unique to me. Like, you can never really, I see photographers adding videography to their repertoire, and it's just terrible. Like, like, you are not a videographer. Like, you're a good still shooter, but you're producing terrible video. Is that good for your brand? Don't know. Like, I understand if you got to add it, but like, be smart about it. I mean, yes, I could add CG to my brand right now, but it would be damaging, unless I was. But I'm never going to get a decade's worth of experience. For me, I would be better off reinventing the wheel somewhere else.
Love it. Well said. All right, let's move right along, and thank you, Joshua Sommerfeld, for that. Hopefully that was helpful. Moving right along, let's see. Oh, we only have a couple more to go here. Tanja DePrinz is up next, and Tanja says, my favorite dancer, Elodie, in my studio picks for applying for a position in the Royal Belgian Ballet. Okay. Look at that. That looks like a timeless shot right there. I mean, that could have been taken in the 40s, 30s, 20s. That is just beautiful. What do you think?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And there's certainly an argument to say that one of the defining qualities of any great image is the fact that it's timeless, which is harder to do than we think. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, the shape of this is beautiful. It's technically very well executed in that she seems very evenly lit, which is harder to do than people realize when this is a large form to try and light evenly. This is not a headshot, which is a very small space to light. She's got her arm outstretched, legs everywhere. Like, this is a very large area to try and light evenly. So yeah, this is very well done.
Yeah.
And I like her use of the frame here as well is beautiful. Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, that was on my list to ask you about that, because that's Troy Miller is a fan of the borders on prints, and I know other people that that shy away from them like the plague. Saying that it's heavy-handed on the image, and the image should stand alone without any sort of border treatment. So you are on the former. That the border treatment it adds to this image. I think it adds
No,
to this image.
I meant that she was using the frame, as in using the space of this
Oh, not the
image
framing
fully,
itself.
not the
Yeah.
actual frame. Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think
No,
of the actual frame?
I'm not. I'm not ever a fan of it personally. For me, it falls into the same category as a watermark, in that I would never watermark an image.
Not even like she's
It's
done here with the copyright. You would never do that.
I think if I was photographing dance, I would definitely watermark like she's done here, because the nature of that business is a lot of word of mouth with a lot of younger people as well. Dance portfolios and that sort of thing. They share their images a lot on social media, and the watermark is going to be seen by your potential clients.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense for that genre and demographic to use a watermark. But for me personally, and the sort of work that I do, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah, what I've seen lately was not the copyright and the artist name, is more of the @ symbol and the Instagram profile name. Just sort of jumping forward and saying, "Hey, just go. If you want to see more of my work, go to Instagram." What do you think of that? I'm looking at your video here, and you're shaking your head. Are you anti-Instagram, Jake Hicks?
I'm not anti-Instagram, but I am. I think that's a branding issue. I think you, on one hand, you can either give yourself a company name, or you use your own name. I mean, like I've done. So, and with that in mind, I think you have to be upfront about the fact that if you've done your branding correctly, people will find you if they want to. And I think that some people are known by their name, and they're like known for such and such photo, and yet they use a different brand name for their studio or something like that. That's bad branding. And if you need to explain that via an @ on your watermark, then again, it's just an example of bad branding.
Or cheapens it a little, right?
It cheapens it. It takes away from this timeless approach as well. We just spoke about that, like the quality that a timeless image has, and stamping. Like Instagram won't be around for our children, or our children's children. Just as you would laugh if you would have put your Facebook handle on there. Like, oh my god, I would never put my Facebook on there.
Well, I put my MySpace and Friendster handle on everything.
You know what I mean? We're just a decade away from being just so out of touch.
Yeah.
So one thing I will say on watermarking is that there are some images out there that I am so thankful don't have my watermark on, because they're out there forever, man. You can't take it back. The internet is the internet. You can't take that shit back.
It's out in the wild.
I think watermarks are great for people who have a business that relies on word of mouth, and they're great for people who perhaps don't intend on improving.
Well, what about some people will watermark for security reasons, so that not that you couldn't just clone this copyright out in half a second.
But that is but that's like putting $1,000 padlock on a glass window. Really, it's just wasting your time, really. That may seem negative, or well, come on, Jake, you got to fight for your rights, and I agree with all of that. But if somebody's going to steal your image, they're going to steal your image, and I don't think a watermark or anything like that is that's not the reason. If you're watermarking for security, that's the wrong reason. Yeah. If you're watermarking to tell people, look, this is where you come if you want awesome timeless dance pictures, that's the reason to do it, but not for security.
Interesting. So in the case of Tanja here, she would have been better off either putting a URL down there or just her name. Her name is unique, right? So just her name. If you Google her name, I'm sure her stuff is going to come up.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't see so what is actually written there? I can't see it because of the quality. What does it actually say?
Oh, it says just her name, Tanja Deprenz.
Perfect. That's all you need. Yeah. I mean, and then anybody with half a brain cell is just going to put photographer at the end of that in Google, and off you go. You're done.
Yeah. Lovely. Cool. All right. Home stretch here. Thank you, Tanja, for that shot. Very nice. See, this is why we have multiple guests on. I think this is actually a good way to go because, Troy has say. I know exactly what he would say because having done so many critiques with him, he would have loved the border and he would have loved the fact that it was black and white, right? So you're not necessarily anti-black and white, but it's not your first go-to, and you're not a fan of borders or copyright. So it's interesting. Interesting. You gotta love art. All right, the next shot is from Craig Stampley. And Craig says, studio fashion portrait of the lovely Megan. Megan's underwater.
Studio fashion. So this is in a studio? Damn, I need to get a bigger studio.
No, this is underwater. Look at that coral bag. This is 100% in his pool, I'm guessing, or somewhere. I don't know.
So I wonder if he means that it's lit by other lights. That'd be interesting. Or whether it's just
what did he say here? Studio
daylight.
fashion portrait. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah, he does a lot of underwater conceptual model photography as well. So I'm assuming this is lit with artificial lighting.
I love the reflections here. I think that's to me, that is that's the key factor for me in this image, is that reflection. I think is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I absolutely love that. Yeah. And the fact that you can't really tell where it begins and ends, and do you have the picture up the right way, sort of thing. I really like that aspect of this shot.
Yeah. I wonder what the story of this shot was, though. I mean, from a interestingness scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10 for sure. Right, because it's very interesting. Why is she underwater? What's the semicolon on her wrist? There's a bunch of questions that pop up. But in service of the story, what's the story? Or is this part of a different story? And this is my mind automatically goes to story. This was a story of a young girl who, had some trauma going on, and the only way she could escape it is to submerge herself in the pool in her family's home.
Isn't it weird that you said that? Isn't it weird that you said that? I'll tell you a funny story. I know we've gone on for long enough, but I'll just tell you real quick.
Yeah.
This is I must be going back 15, 20 years. We were doing a job for, must have been 20 years. We were doing a potential job for a clothing fashion brand. And, it was a big gig. So we did some test shots of some ideas that we thought, we're going to do something different for these guys. We want to add something that's just going to make their images pop. And we did a test shoot for them first. And we did we took their fashion and took it all underwater to all the models wearing their clothes underwater. We thought the images looked amazing. These look, they're going to love these. This is going to be phenomenal. And their response was, look, we can't have that as part of our brand. People wearing clothing underwater is linked with depression. We can't have that associated with our brand. I was like, we really is that somewhere written down I'm not aware of? I had no idea, but it is funny that you said that immediately. Yeah, exactly. But you did go there straight away, struggling with something, and whether there is something there. We lost the gig because they were like, look, we cannot be associated with people wearing clothes underwater because of the link to depression. Yeah,
I wonder what my brain went there. I think my brain goes there because when you're underwater, it's sort of by definition solitary, and. In being in a solitary area away from other people is, I would guess, therapeutic, right? So
I don't know whether it was a news story at the time, but yeah, it was not, people it's a signifier that people who wash or bathe, they still have their clothes on. It's seen as this, just very, not quite okay. Yeah, but it's So I'm just a little story from reality of what is actually seen by other companies in the fashion world.
Interesting. What do you think about the color treatment here, Jake Hicks?
I would say
Jake is smiling. Jake is smiling very, very nicely over there.
So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the photographer here, and I'm looking at it from a technical aspect. I've shot underwater, and it is very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult, not only due to the magnification, but also because of the just drastic color shifts that you can get. And there will also be drastic color shifts when you're close to the surface if you have light that's seen from outside versus the light that's seen from inside. So in this instance, you may have found that the lighting and the colors going on here, specifically the colors, would be very different in the top image, if you like, the mirror image compared to the bottom image, and that could have distracted from the overall impact of the shot.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think underwater, I think either really vibrant colors. And again, this is art, right? So all bets are off. But when I think underwater, I think vibrant colors like coral reefs, and you know how they oversaturate colors whenever you see a documentary of underwater scenes, when in reality, because light can't reach down there, everything is muted and or black and white for the most part, the deeper you go. So it's interesting.
Yeah, you're right. So the water is literally acting as a filter, and it is filtering out certain wavelengths of light. So everything does appear, blue. Yeah. We did a shoot of synchronized swimmers in a swimming pool, and oh man, the temptation to turn those black and white was strong. I won't lie.
It's funny you have to resist that though, man. I mean, that's like, Jake, you should force yourself to shoot nothing but black and white in the month of July. That's it.
Shooting in auto or something, you just got to try,
I love it. I got to get you and Troy have to do a critique together. I got to get you a battle royale.
Everybody can shoot black and white if they wish to. Of course, it is art, as you said. Yeah.
How many of your cameras are modified for infrared?
Infrared is, like, jokes aside, you can get some phenomenal shots. I think I see people using an infrared camera on the stupidest items that just don't reflect back anything else other than you would normally get in a black and white image. But I have seen some phenomenal infrared shots.
Yeah. I've seen some from Troy. Troy does some amazing stuff. Yeah, we'll have to get you guys. I'm putting that on my list. I'm getting you both on at the same time to do a critique.
Dangerous, man. I'm just saying, I cannot be held responsible.
Good. That's what I want to see. All right. It's Craig Stampley. Thanks again, Craig, for that. Very cool. All right. Home stretch here. The next shot is from Peter Levshin. And Peter says, Canon 5D Mark III 24-70. My model, Thailand Bridge on the River Kwai. He stopped for 30 seconds so I could take this pic. We walked for a few minutes. I asked if he wanted a copy of the photo. He said yes. Turned out he's from LA. That's awesome. He's trying to be an actor, and now I'm a monk.
I know, LA. I mean, geez, there's a lot. That's so. I mean, this is an incredibly striking image, no question. And for me, the thing that stands out immediately, even though it is in black and white, the thing that stands out immediately is the separation between model and background. We have this very angular, very structure, this very rigid bridge with a lot of straight, just dead straight lines, and then the only other thing in this image is him, which is just wrapped in this very soft fabric, a lot of texture, a lot of, almost a sense of movement in that fabric as well. So that contrast between foreground and background is phenomenal. Yeah. I just got to say, though, man, there's just no way that he's wearing a gray robe.
I knew it. I knew it was coming.
I'm just saying, I just feel like that would have been an awesome.
What color do you think that robe was? What color? I'm going to go with the orange.
Amazing color. That's all you need to know. You just know that was an amazing color robe.
I agree. I think on a shot like this, because that bridge that he's standing on is, obviously going to be in the same color family as the rest of the bridge, the wood and the metal probably all work together. Yeah, aged, because they all aged at the same time, and then you pop this human in the middle with. I'm guessing that's going to be a vibrantly orange or green or something robe that he has on.
Just phenomenal color. That's all it is. That's the only thing it can be.
Yeah, Peter, let's see this in color in the comments. Go ahead and post the color version. I want to see what that looks like. Love it. That's cool. That's so interesting. That's the cool thing about photography is it's opinionated, but from a positive standpoint, right? So you love color, all things color, beautiful people, meticulous execution. Other people love black and white and infrared and all this. Some people love macro, which we're going to see in a minute. It's just, and then you can start merging these worlds together because there's no one right answer for any of this stuff. You start putting this chocolate and that peanut butter, you end up with something brand new and your own look, so Very cool. People could take bits of Jake Hicks and bits of Troy Miller and end up.
Whoa.
You guys couldn't be more different from the hair to the photographic style. I love it.
Black and white landscape is as far from yeah.
Is that what you do? Yeah.
So there you go. Steven's put in the comments there. The stove would be the robe would be saffron. Yeah, that would definitely be gorgeous.
All right, Peter Levshin, thanks for that. Yeah, I want to see what the actual color looks like. Mark Harris.
How many have we got here, Frederick? Like, do I need to get my slippers and stuff, or we
no,
three more.
We got three more. Yeah, just three more. We're three more. Good. Are you good? Can you hang in for three more?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. This is cool. I like this.
Mark Harris says for the portrait theme, surrounded by green, a fashion portrait from our portfolio, Nikon D850. The natural window light on an overcast day. Teresa brought this robe because she knows the studio was full of plants. Oh, cool. Poison ivy.
I love this. Yeah, I love this. This is really cool. And I think this is like an interesting use of a landscape portrait, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's worked out really well with the shapes that he's got going on there as well. I'd be tempted to come in just a touch tighter, but I'm just looking at it from my point of view. Again, the thing that stands out to me, I love the colors in this, but I would want to make more of a thing of those colors. I would want to see like her skin looks a little bit like, I'm sure she is very pale and there's nothing wrong with that, but I would want to see almost working with that and just accentuate the colors and the rest of it. We have those pinks, the really subtle pinks, almost magentas, and the green, which again, complementary colors. Like you could really make this image jump out. And you're shooting it on the D850, so you got days and days of color data in there. So there's certainly loads of scope for that shot for sure. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Is this looks slightly muted on the color side, and to pop those because they're the red hair, contrasted against the sort of eggshell blue background with the green plants and, like you're saying, the pinks in the robe and all that. If it all popped, would be. And it looks like it's
I really think this could be
yeah it's almost intentionally muted, and it feels like it should go in the other direction.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be at all afraid of really ramping up the contrast in this, because we have so much beautiful shape on her face there. Like, we can really ramp up the contrast on this without it being unflattering in any way. So that would be an interesting experiment to play with.
Yeah, love it. Cool. All right. Second to the last shot here is from Michael DeRay. Michael DeRay says, never above pandering. Okay, here we go. I'll never be Jake Hicks, but it's fun to pretend while using my limited resources. He shot this with a Olympus E-M5 Sigma 60mm f at f5 at 160th of a second. The only model that would let me take her picture. She loves her grandpa. And finished with Capture One Pro and Affinity Photo. There you go.
Always got to be using the tools you have at your disposal. Yeah. Never an excuse not to take a picture, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Never say, well, I would have done this, but I'm not Jake Hicks. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and like you're saying there, he's got some flashes there and that sort of stuff. I think it would have been nice to have just maybe a bit more light on the face here, just to open that up a little bit, and that would help to maybe fill in some of the shadows, under some of the dark rings under the eyes there. That would help to just open that up. But I mean, expression is key, and this is obviously family member, so like this is going to be an image that is unique to you, and you always got to take that shot rather than not taking it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this will be timeless, absolutely timeless.
I don't think anybody's ever going to be lying there at the end wishing they'd taken less pictures.
Yeah. Would you have moved the baby off the background to blur the background more, or are you? No,
because the only reason why you would want to do that is if the background is distracting, and we don't have any distracting elements back there, so it's not fighting for our focus. If there was a lot of baubles or books or cereal boxes or something like that would be very distracting, with a lot of visual noise and color there. So that would pull us away. So this is absolutely fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. This is a family portrait for sure. Definitely goes on the photo wall. And good job pandering too. Excellent. Michael DeRay. All right. The next shot is of this beautiful model from William Bannock. William says a studio portrait shot. Does a desktop studio macro portrait count? Since it's June, let's go with a portrait of a June bug, the bane of the fine Bermuda lawns throughout the South. Tabletop rig, 5D Mark III, etc. Let's take a look at
So what
this.
is this? What lens is this? This is because I've never ever shot macro. This is a world that I know nothing about. Yeah.
This is a 60 image stack. So that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, a 60 image stack, MP 65 millimeter, 3.5 to f4 lens at 1/40th of a second, ISO 100, with a flash at 1/8 power. Stacked it all up with Zarine.
DIY triangle diffuser. Interesting. Okay.
Look at that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's like that. I've always this and astro photography I've always wanted to do but never got around to. And I think what attracts me so much to those types of images is the fact that there's stuff there the whole time that we just go by every single day without seeing or really exploring further, whether it be the night sky or, like the macro world, that's just crazy, man. I mean, that's just phenomenal,
Yeah. It's surrounded by shots all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at the detail in this though. I mean, that is just the little.
And that's obviously the benefit of 60 images, I suppose.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. All the way through. This is
obviously.
This is what you don't want to. Yeah. Obviously, this is what you don't want to wake up next to. Right?
No, not that size. Yeah. No.
No.
But I mean, strong separation from the background there. Very, very clean, and no breakup in any of the shadows. I mean, he's lit this remarkably well. And the beautiful light on the eyes and stuff. I mean, it almost looks cute. It's just those big eyes and that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's incredible image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with everything you just said except for the cute thing. So
I don't think we have those bugs. I don't think we have them.
Oh, we can bring you some. We'll import some over there. I don't think I've ever seen a June bug, to be honest with you. Not knowingly.
So what is it? Is it? Are they really hot areas or?
I'm guessing. I mean, if it's in the Bermuda South, yeah.
Right.
Bermuda lawns throughout the South.
I have no idea how big that thing is. I mean, it could be the size of a small dog for all I know. I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't want to find out because I do not want to see one of those anywhere. Imagine waking up with one of those on the pillow next to you. That would not be.
Why would you go there, Frederick? Why?
It's the things that nightmares are made of.
Clearly. They are now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wake up screaming. I know who to blame.
Yeah. Check your sheets before you pull them out.
Thanks.
All right, William, thank you for that shot. Let's wrap this up real quick.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, thank you.
What are your thoughts on a favorite shot throughout this bunch?
What a turnout, though, Frederick. Hey, I mean, what a turnout.
Right? Not bad.
Hey, does Troy get this many?
Or are you guys? Are you measuring swords now? I mean, come on.
Wow. I mean, I just didn't know. I'm just curious. I'm just asking for a friend.
Well, no, Troy gets more. I'm just saying, So
okay.
Occasionally more.
Wow,
occasionally,
wow.
the Father's Day
deep,
episode,
guys, deep,
or the father's topic episode only had like 5 or 6, so you're winning there. But depending on the topic, we get a ton or a few. So it ranges.
No, but I mean, we had so many images there, and it's good to see so much variation there. I know. Obviously, tongue in cheek, we said about the gelled portraits and that sort of stuff, but it's great to see so many different variations, in the types of shots there as well. So yeah, I mean, and thank you so much to everybody that put their image up there, and it takes guts to do that. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, so I was just joking.
And if you did, you wouldn't copyright it or put a watermark on there, right?
But yeah, it does take nerve to put your images out there and open yourself up to critique. So I respect anybody that has the confidence to do that. And I think that we should do it more often, and we should take the opportunity to do it more often. Whenever we see that opportunity to get feedback from anybody else who has some credentials, shall we say, or you respect the work of, then it's definitely take that opportunity to get that feedback, regardless of what may come of it, because I guarantee you will learn something for sure.
Yep, I agree. Well, that said, Jake Hicks, I'm going to throw it to you to pick the favorite of the week. What is your favorite shot?
It's definitely been tough, but I have to go with Tim. I'm afraid I have to go for the I'm sure this comes as no surprise to people here, but for me, and I say this as a term of endearment, but this is a textbook portrait to me, and like I say, I mean that in the nicest possible way. But I do think it has so many great qualities that stand out to me that is just beautiful in every right. And even the post pro is I saw a bigger version of this image earlier on, and the post pro is immaculate as well. So I mean, yeah, congrats on all fronts.
Love it. Very cool. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that, man, for this episode. Congratulations, Tim Engle, for being selected. I agree. I think for me, they're all great. But Joshua Sommerfeld's shot, just because it was completely architected from imagination and incorporated the gels and all that stuff in there, I think that one was also a good runner-up. But as far as being the best one, especially considering the topic and the subject matter for this particular critique, I think Tim hands down took it away. So congratulations.
I'm also not quite ready to include CG under the banner of photography just yet.
I do. Yeah, it's coming, man. It's coming. Pixels are pixels, whether they were there, to begin with or not, It's coming, ladies and gentlemen. The great pixel wars are coming, It was interesting. There's a dialogue on TWiP PRO right now because one of the people over at 500px is blocking or denying a photographer access because he does a lot of composite work, and they say compositing is not photography at 500px. So I don't agree with that. You could categorize it as a kind of photography, but to say it's not photography, I think is a stretch. So I don't know,
because they are made up of photographs.
It's made up of photographs. It's just bits and pieces. That's like saying a mosaic is not art. So I don't know. All right. Well, cool, man. Once again, housekeeping. Next week's critique topic is going to be Pride in honor of the 4th of July here in the U.S. and Pride Week around the world. Actually, it's Pride Month around the world. So get your submissions in there. It could be anything related to Pride, however you choose to interpret that. And Jake Hicks, you do a podcast with Wayne Johns, right? Tell us a little bit about that show and where people can go to subscribe to it.
Yeah, thank you, Frederick. Yeah, Podlemania it's called. We're in double digits now. So we're flying.
Nice.
But it is it's
wait, double digit subscribers or number of episodes.
Just getting right there, man. Just like, man.
I cut with a knife, man. I cut with a knife.
Just non-stop. No, we're in episode 11, 12, something like that.
Nice.
But yeah, we are focused on creatives and the creative field in general. So that can be, granted, it has been a lot of photographers, but we've had cinematographers on there as well. And we had an interview with a cinematographer a couple of weeks ago with John Engstrom, based in Hell's Kitchen there in New York. Absolutely fascinating. He used to be David LaChapelle's assistant for like 16 years or something like that. He had some phenomenal stories to share. Wow. I think the podcast has just gone up recently. We've managed to interview the managing director of Panavision here, which was, I don't know how we ended up doing that, but that was an incredible insight to see where the world of cinematography is going with, people like Netflix making 8 shows a week. Jeez. If you can comprehend the volume of work that they're doing, and obviously Panavision has got a big hand in that, so that was an interesting one. But yeah, like it's been fascinating, and really, from my point of view, it's just an excuse to talk to interesting people. In all honesty, and like podcasting seems weird. Like if I was to send an email to somebody and go, "Hey, would you mind if I spoke to you on the phone for an hour?" You'd be like, "Get lost, you weirdo."
Yeah.
But if I send an email going, "Hey, would you mind if I spoke to you for an hour on the phone and recorded it and shared it with the world?" They're like, "Yeah, that sounds really cool." I don't really understand how podcasting works, but like people seem to be okay with that. It seems weird.
It's weird, but true. You hit it right on the head. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just been So it's been great to speak to some of the some of those awesome people. Yeah, so definitely check those out. Podlemania, it's called. It's available on every platform I think imaginable.
Yeah, and if you can't say or pronounce the name of their show, we will link to it in the notes, both on the blog post for this episode as well in the YouTube comments or description area. Podlemania is the name of it. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Jake Hicks. And folks, remember, Jake Hicks, if you want to learn more from this guy, head over to his website, obviously, and head over to RGG.edu, where Jake has some tutorials up there that teach you everything that's in his brain. No, not really, but a little bit of it. You can get inside.
And I assure you, I'm a little bit more diplomatic and a little bit more opening than I have been here. I've been getting into the spirit of it with Frederick and getting my
diplomacy
opinions
helps
across,
no one. We don't need it. Diplomacy and art helps no one. You gotta just tell it like it is.
All are equal in my eyes, I assure you. Yeah.
I love it. All right, man. Well, we'll leave it right there.
At the end.
we'll leave, before we start another world war, we'll leave it right there and move right along. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate your time today. You have to come on again and do this again if you're up for it.
Oh, of course, man. Yeah. If your community will have me back, I will gladly come back. Yeah.
All right. Well, vote for Jake Hicks and TWiP PRO and let us know if you want Jake back on the show, or should he be banned from the ranch forever?
If I ever come back, it's only going to be black and white submissions. I know that you're
black and white with watermarks and borders. Yeah, I think that's.
I know they'll do that to me now.
You see, it's my community, man. They rally.
I know. I shouldn't have said anything. Yeah.
All right, Jake. On with your night, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for participating. We'll see you guys next time. And if there's enough feedback about this live version, let me know in TWiP PRO, and we'll continue to stream these live so you guys can chit-chat and interact with us in the chat. Happy to make changes as we move forward, unlike Jake Hicks. But I'm just kidding.
Thank God I'll never be as old as you are now. That's it. There you go.
No, you never will be. You never will be.
I'll never catch you up.
No. But just hopefully you won't lose your hair, because that hair is awesome. Mine is not. All right. We can chit chat all day. All right, guys. We'll see you later. We'll see you in the next
guys.
episode.
Thanks.
All right. See ya.